UFC Vegas 45, aka UFC Fight Night, Derrick Lewis versus Chris Daukaus. Welcome to another UFC prediction and analysis video by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by the name of Zan, I go by the name of Harris. And as usual, we're giving you our fight-by-fight breakdown, strictly from the betting perspective, here to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights you want to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay action towards the end of the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you hit the thumbs up, and most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. For this fight night, we have 14 fights. We have 8 of them, or I should say, we have 8 of them on the prelims. So we are going to get started right away with fight number 1. Taking a look at Jourdain Leavitt versus Matt Sayles. For this fight, Matt Sayles, he last competed 2 years ago. December 2019, he lost to Bryce Mitchell in that fight. He's decent on the feet, pretty light on the feet, good movement. Look for decent technique and combinations out of him. Does a good amount of work at Dom Cruz in terms of which camp he comes from, so that could maybe mean something, maybe not. And he claims to have wrestling. I've yet to see it. 0 takedowns in the UFC, so I don't know how valid that is whatsoever. Jourdain Leavitt, we know, is sort of the opposite of that. He suffered his first professional defeat to Claudio Puelles back in June. He's looking to land that takedown early. He definitely prefers the fight on the ground. Active on top, trying to improve position at all times. Not the heaviest ground and pound, though. More of a position guy, a submission guy as well. Submission specialist to that point. Most of his professional wins are via submission. Pretty crafty on the ground, whether he's on top or on bottom. Pretty relentless in his approach as well. That said, not really the best on the feet. He is a southpaw, doesn't really have the best technique, doesn't really have the best footwork. That is an opportunity to sort of piece him up. Matt Sayles, really important here, 27 years old still. So when you see a 27-year-old fighter take a 2-year layoff, I mean, that could mean that he comes back as a completely different fighter, as opposed to someone who's just coming back for a paycheck. What's concerning for Sayles, however, of course, to some degree, you can use that Bryce Mitchell fight as an example, but to many degrees that you can't. He's a completely different fighter than who Jourdain Leavitt is. But we know Bryce Mitchell's strength is his takedown. We know that he was able to use that takedown as well as his wrestling to completely control Matt Sayles in their last fight, of course, leading to the round 1 submission. Again, I'm not saying Leavitt can do that, but that is something to be cautious of, something to be aware of. Matt Sayles, otherwise, he definitely has the better stand-up. For this fight, there has to be some guessing involved. And I'm going to guess that he will be able to stop the takedown of Jourdain Leavitt, at least eventually, as the fight goes on, while picking Leavitt apart on the feet here. So, I mean, I can't call it a confident pick because there are a lot of question marks. But to me, Jourdain Leavitt, just simply not a high-level fighter at all. My pick is going to be Matt Sayles. I'll keep it as simple as that.
Yeah, this is a real tough one here because when you look at the fight, these guys, this is a typical striker versus grappler. Their approach to this fight, I think Matt Sayles is the far better striker in this fight, and I think that Leavitt's going to have the grappling advantage. But we've seen in Leavitt's last fight versus Claudio Puelles. Puelles was able to get the win, but more importantly in that fight, Leavitt, after the first round, his cardio, his strength wasn't there. And that's going to be concerning in this fight. Because Matt Sayles he got schooled on the ground against Bryce Mitchell. But Bryce Mitchell, I think, is going to be shown to be probably the best American grappler in the UFC. In all divisions. Like, this guy has legit grappling. He's an American fighter. So seeing Bryce Mitchell get that success against him, I'm not surprised considering Bryce Mitchell is doing that to black belts. I don't think Jourdain Leavitt's on the level of Bryce Mitchell. So again, this is a close fight. It depends where the fight goes, which fighter can kind of dictate how the fight plays out. If it stays on the feet, then obviously Sayles is going to win. If it goes to the mat for 2 rounds, then Leavitt's going to have a big advantage. But I'm guessing that this is a close fight. I'm not going to bet, but I'm going to go Matt Sayles here to kind of win 2 rounds here. I think he can survive the first round, and then as the fight goes on, stop the takedowns, and he has a far better striking. And this guy has pop, Matt Sayles. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually lands a shot on Leavitt here, but I'm gonna go Matt Sayles. I'm gonna go with the underdog in this one.
Fight number 2, we have Dontel Mays taking on Josh Parisian. Two interesting heavyweights here. With Dontel Mays, he last competed last year in November, so 13 months since his last fight. He beat Rocky Martinez via unanimous decision. Decent movement, fights from the outside. He'll definitely pepper in that calf kick as well. He's one of those fighters who are game. I mean, he's in the fight at all times, but just doesn't really have a style that's necessarily conducive to winning rounds. Doesn't really do any one thing enough or any one thing consistently. But what I will say, decent long jab, good push kick, has a very long reach, 81 inches here, only a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight, but definitely uses that reach to his full advantage. I also think he doesn't really have that one punch power that most heavyweights do. Interesting, because I also feel the same way about Josh Parisian. I will mention him very shortly. Last point I'll make about Dontel Mays, he can switch stance. Expect him to be more of a technical point fighter rather than a brawler. And like I said, a lot of the same things to say about Josh Parisian. Funny enough, his last fight was also against Rocky Martinez. He beat him via split decision, and that was back in June. Josh Parisian is introduced as a striker. Again, he includes that calf kick in his attack. Again, he fights from the outside. He is somewhat agile for as big as he is, at least early in the fight. And again, similarly, has a very long jab, pretty long 1-2s when he decides to use that combination. And he can't really handle pressure too well. I mean, we saw that in the Parker Porter fight. We saw that in the Rocky Martinez fight, although he is able to engage. And of course, we saw him pull the W in that Rocky Martinez fight. But analysis-wise, what I'll say is this. 2 big heavyweights, 2 long heavyweights, but 2 heavyweights that more so fight from the outside, 2 heavyweights that are not necessarily looking to brawl. But to that point, I trust Dontel Mays a bit more in this fight. Because neither fighter has that one-punch KO power, and because both guys want to fight from distance, I think both guys are going to be able to implement their game plan here. And I think to that point, Dontel Mays is just the cleaner striker of the 2. And that should be all he needs to do to get the job done here. Still a heavyweight beware, but simply put, Dontel Mays is the better fighter, the cleaner fighter, in my opinion. And I think that's going to be enough to get the job done. So my pick will be for Dontel Mays.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I'm going to be quick. I'm going Dontel Mays. Again, this is really low-level heavyweight fighting here. So you can't feel confident on either side. Seeing Dontel Mays as such a at minus 200, you can't feel good betting on Dontel Mays against anybody at minus 200. Those odds should be a lot closer here. But what I like about Dontel Mays in this fight, just to give you guys a bit of stuff before I move on to the next fight. Dontel Mays they have a common opponent. Dontel Mays was able to get a unanimous decision against Rocky Martinez, and Rocky Martinez and Parisian. That was a close fight. That was a split decision. I believe Parisian won that fight. But a bigger thing for me in this fight is Dontel Mays has a couple fights where he's gone the distance. I know on the contender series versus Crowder, he really gassed out in that fight, and that's why he lost. But it looks like he fixed that in 2017, where he's gone the decisions after that, and he's been in the second, third round after that, and his cardio is holding up. So he clearly fixed his cardio issue. And this fight's not going to be a fast-paced fight. If someone gasses first, I think Parisian might gas first, but Dontel Mays won't be far behind. So I'm going to go with Dontel Mays. I think he's the more athletic guy, the younger guy, the bigger guy, 6'6". I just think he's technically the better striker. He's a better fighter all around, and he's going to be the stronger guy in the ring. He's going to be the stronger guy. He should be able to dictate where the fight goes. But as far as confidence, it's pretty low because you can't be confident taking a guy like Dontel Mays, right? So, but again, Dontel Mays is my pick. If I had to choose, gun to my head, Dontel Mays is my guy.
Fight number 3. In that case, we have Raquel Pennington taking on Macy Chiasson. Raquel Pennington, she is on a 2-fight win streak. She had a pretty good win in her last fight versus Pani Kianzad. That was in September. I would say toughness is probably her biggest strength. Look for her to come forward, look for her to control the center of the octagon. I'd also say she probably most closely identifies as a boxer on the feet, primarily hands, pretty good long jab, pretty active hands at times as well. Decent striking defense, but more importantly, again, very physically strong, especially when she gets you against the cage. Effective tie clinch, effective clinch in general. Look for her to kind of play that bully game should she need to. And again, just kind of grind out these rounds and sort of grind her way to a victory potentially. Macy Chiasson, on the other hand, 2-fight win streak in her own right. She beat Marion Renault back in March. Very tall fighter. We see she's going to have a 4-inch height advantage in this one, 5 inches in the reach. She has that aggressive pressing type of striking, pretty long punches, willing to engage, but she's definitely introduced a lot more patience to her game. She fights from distance now, from what I've seen, at least in her last showing versus Marion Renault with her long punches. Again, she showed that more patient side to her striking, which definitely could work in her favor. A good long jab. She has a good one too. She'll throw combinations as well. Speaking of tie clinch, she likes the knees in the tie clinch, not unsurprising because she is, again, a pretty long, tall fighter. Respectable takedown defense, mostly due to her long frame. On paper, she is only 64%, but fighters have had some issues taking her down, again, due to that long frame that she has. And although 30 years old, she is still a fighter that is improving with every fight. Only 9 professional fights at this point versus 21 for Raquel Pennington. So Macy Chiasson, to some degree, will always have question marks as you ask yourself, how much has she improved since her last showing? But prediction-wise, I'll keep it pretty short. I like Pennington here. And the reason I like Pennington is because neither fighter, in my opinion, is distinctively better on the feet. I know Chiasson has some advantages, maybe some better tools, specifically with her length, specifically with her reach. But Pennington will counter that, of course, with the advantages that she has with her toughness, with her pressure, and strictly with that boxing type of approach as she closes distance, I think could work to her advantage. Pennington has more of an ability to make the fight ugly and for lack of a better word, make it boring. Use that clinch to her advantage, use that physical strength that she should have in this fight, potentially introduce that takedown. We see she does average 1 takedown per fight. I think in general, she just maybe has more depth to her game than Macy Chiasson does. But of course, Chiasson is a threat with her length, I should say. Definitely has that ability to impose that clinch game in her own right. But I think who's more likely to do that? Raquel Pennington. I think Raquel Pennington's advantages, I like them more in this situation. And again, to conclude my point, I think her physical strength in those situations will make the difference. I can't be too confident on this. This is something I'd be a little bit careful of in terms of betting on or including on parlays. But I think that Raquel Pennington can sort of tough her way to a victory. And I wouldn't be surprised if one fighter clearly wins round 1, one fighter clearly wins round 2. And again, it's Raquel Pennington's toughness that barely edges round 3 for her. That's sort of what I'm expecting in this fight. So Raquel Pennington will be my pick.
Yeah, I'm with you in a sense that this is going to be a tough fight because you got to think that Macy Chiasson may have the striking advantage here. If this stays on the feet, she might be able to outstrike Raquel Pennington. But I'm with you in a sense that I think Raquel has more tools. She has that ability to hold Chiasson against the cage, get the takedown. When you look at the oppositions that they fought, Raquel only lost to really good fighters, contenders, people that fought for titles. And Macy Chiasson hasn't really gotten that step up yet in competition. So I'm gonna go with you on this fight. I'm gonna go Raquel Pennington. Either get some takedowns or get some control against the cage, and I think that's gonna make the judges pick her, give her the win here. So I'm gonna go Raquel Pennington, but I'm not confident here. But I think Raquel Pennington has more tools. She's gonna be the stronger girl. The grappling should be the way to win this fight, and I think if anything, she can at least hold her against the cage for a majority of this fight. So I'm going to go Raquel Pennington to get this done.
Fight number 4, we have Charles Jourdain taking on Andre Ewell. Pretty interesting featherweight fight here. Charles Jourdain, he lost Julian Erosa in September. A pretty good dynamic striker. As a southpaw, we see him listed there as a switch stance. Definitely has some good pop. Definitely has that explosiveness. You take a look at his 11 professional wins, and 8 of them are via KO, TKO. So definitely have to respect that pop that he has. A good counter striker, good calf kick. Just generally speaking, overall, he's a pretty high action fighter, pretty exciting fighter as well. He's usually going to have a pretty good showing. Andre Ewell, on the other hand, he lost to Julio Arce back in July. He's on a 2-fight losing streak at this point. Pretty athletic, pretty explosive, a pretty dynamic fighter. Usually a tall southpaw, but we see in this fight only 1 inch shorter on paper. I'm curious how true that is, because he is somebody that maybe looks a little bit taller than he's listed. Southpaw, like I said, methodical, quick, long striking, definitely will fight at distance, has a lot of speed to him as well. He likes that 1-2 from range, good movement around the ring, likes to fight from range in general, also likes that jab to the body. Sneaky high kick, sneaky front kick. Starts fights very quickly, but will definitely start to fade even after that first round. So that's probably the biggest concern that I have with him. Maybe even a bigger concern than that is that this fight is taking place at featherweight at 145 pounds. That's extremely important here, as Andre Ewell is typically a 135-pound fighter. So I'm curious. I mean, he has the athletic frame for it. Maybe he has no problem filling out the division, or maybe Charles Jourdain will be the bigger guy here. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. These two fighters will definitely keep the fight on the feet. I mean, you see the takedown numbers definitely lacking for both fighters. So I do expect this one to stay on the feet here. And I think this fight's going to be about toughness. And that's sort of been a theme for me when looking at these fights. I think when the fight comes down to toughness, I have to ask myself, who do I think is the tougher fighter? In this situation, I think that is Charles Jourdain. In a striking match, I think either guy can catch one another, so be very careful, again, when making a bet on this fight. But again, if I have to make a pick for the channel, at least before the weigh-in, at least before the ring walks, I'm leaning on the side of Charles Jourdain, so he's going to be my pick.
Okay, one thing I will say about this fight is you can't be confident on either side. I know I'm going to be quick. Charles Jourdain is my pick. I just think he's a more well-rounded guy. He can go to the wrestling. He has the power. He's been in this division. And Ewell has shown some chin issues. But when you look at Charles Jourdain's record, when you look at his fights, he lost against Julian Erosa. Marcelo Rojo fight, he won in the 3rd round. He was losing that fight. So that could have been a second loss. And then before that, he lost to Andre Fili. And then he knocked out Duho Choi. And then he lost against Des Green. So he could easily be four losses, 1 win in the UFC if he didn't get that spirited comeback in the 3rd round against Marcelo Rojo. So stylistically, I like Charles Jourdain in this fight. But when you really look at what he's done, he's pretty close to losing almost all of his fights. And when you look at the way these guys stylistically match up, Ewell has good boxing. He's going to be moving up in weight. He doesn't really have the grappling I think Jourdain, if he wants, he can kind of implement a lot of grappling in this fight. Jourdain has the power. I just feel that Jourdain's variety in terms of MMA ability is going to make him win this fight. But I think this fight can go either way. But I'm going to go Jourdain to get this done. Test that chin. Ewell's going to have a hard time. These guys in this division have more power. than the 135-pound division. So Ewell's going to be tested in this fight as far as his chin goes. So because of the power, I got to go with Charles Jourdain to get this done. But again, this can go either way.
Fight number 5, we have Sijara Eubanks taking on Melissa Gatto. Eubanks, she beat Elise Reed back in July. Clearly beat her in that one. She has a little bit of everything. Veteran at this point, right? Pretty good boxer, willing to engage, trade shots. She'll use that front low kick. That'll open up her boxing opportunities. She can play the role of counterpuncher. She can come forward. She has solid takedowns, BJJ black belt as well. So overall, her ground game is pretty solid. Good takedown defense, at least early in the fight. Probably the biggest thing for her is that cardio has been an issue in the past. Doesn't really have that extra gear either, should it be needed. Is it needed in this fight? I'm not sure. Melissa Gatto, she beat Victoria Leonardo back in August. That was her UFC debut. She's a grappler, definitely a grappler. 4 of her 7 wins are via submission. So that speaks to her ground game. She broke her opponent's arm in her last fight. I don't even think that was counted as a submission. I think that was counted as doctor stoppage. So she should really have 5 of her 7 wins via submission, basically. But good defensive BJJ. When she is taken down, she's shown me a style where she wants to bring it to the ground right away. She'll lock onto your body. She'll take you down. She'll make it a grappling match. Pretty good top game to go along with that. In terms of her performance on the feet, I mean, she's improving. I'll say that. Decent calf kick, decent hand speed. She does look like she can put combinations together, but still very much a ground game specialist and still somewhat green on the feet, at least in my opinion. This is an interesting match. I think this is in some ways a difficult match to call. I expect Eubanks to, in most cases in the women's flyweight division, I expect Eubanks to be the physically stronger fighter. I think that's going to work well for her in clinch situations. I think that's going to work well for her in terms of her takedown defense, because I don't think, as much as Melissa Gatto wants to get the fight to the ground, I don't think she's a takedown specialist. She's much more of a grappling specialist and can take those that don't really have the takedown defense. She has no problem taking them down. So I think Sijara Eubanks' physique and strength, at least early in the fight, will stop Gatto's attempts. Will that dishearten Gatto? We're going to have to wait and see for that one. I expect Eubanks to be the better wrestler overall between the two. Again, she has a BJJ black belt. I think, not to say it's better or matches Gatto's, but I do think it will be able to protect her. Gatto's grappling is dangerous, so Eubanks definitely has to be careful there. But again, I'm looking at the fighter who is the better wrestler in Sijara Eubank, is the stronger fighter in Sijara Eubank, and I think Eubanks is also the better striker. Overall, I do like Sijara Eubanks in this spot. I think these are the types of opponents that she beats. I can see why she's the favorite. I can see why she's at -170. I'm going with Sijara Eubanks.
Yeah, I'm going to be real fast here. I'm going Sijara Eubanks. Melissa Gatto's a black belt. She's done black jiu-jitsu tournaments. But Sijara Eubanks has done those tournaments as well and has been successful. And she's going to have a big strength advantage. And at the 125-pound weight class, she's been pretty unstoppable in that division. If you look at her losses, a lot of those losses are in the 135 pounds. So I like Sijara here I think she can beat her on the feet. And I actually think she's going to utilize a wrestling approach, get side mount, get in positions that you won't get submitted in, because Gatto has high-level jiu-jitsu. But I like Sijara to use her experience to get the win here.
Let's move on to fight number 6. In that case, we have Justin Tafa taking on Harry Hunsucker. This is definitely a shorter prediction from me. Justin Tafa lost to Jared Vandera back in May. 2-fight losing streak. He's a bit one-dimensional as a heavyweight. Big power, big right hook as a southpaw. He can sneak up on you with that right hook, with his timing. Otherwise, very flat-footed, doesn't really offer much else. Harry Hunsucker lost to Tai Tuivasa back in March. Much quicker on the feet comparatively. A lot of fakes. Hand speed is a little bit underrated. I would say the hand speed is pretty good. He can be explosive with his looping hooks as well, likes the calf kick as well, but not the biggest heavyweight. We see he's actually going to be the taller guy, 6'2" versus 6 foot. But again, not the biggest heavyweight from the perspective of how he hits the scale. You're looking at a fighter who hits the scale at about 250, whereas Justin Tafa maxes it out at 266. Two guys that can slug it out. Again, Hunsucker definitely has that speed advantage, but I think Justin Tafa has a big power advantage in this fight. For the style of fighters that these guys are, I think Tafa's power advantage will be a much bigger factor than Hunsucker's speed advantage. Ultimately, I can see the fight going very similarly to how Harry Hunsucker versus Tai Tuivasa went. Go ahead and watch that fight if you're unaware of what happened in that one. Of course, this is a heavyweight beware. I would say completely avoid adding this to anything. Don't bet it straight up. Don't include it on parlays. But again, I think Justin Tafa gets the win here. I think he finishes Harry Hunsucker, and I wouldn't be surprised if this fight in general under 1.5 rounds. But I usually only just make the pick. I'm just adding in those props for anyone that's paying attention to that. My pick will be Justin Tafa to win the match.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't do much research on this fight. I pretty much, those odds are crazy. Minus 340. I think this fight is a pretty much who lands first. I wouldn't put this on a parlay. I think the odds are kind of wild because these guys have the power to put you out with one shot. But I think the more technical guy, when you look at the way they strike, Justin Tafa is definitely the more technical guy. He can take a shot. He's shown that in his fight with that tough Brazilian guy that throws the hammers. But I like Justin Tafa here to get this one done. But the odds are disrespectful here. I wouldn't make a bet here. But I think Justin Tafa could get it done. Again, I'm not going to make a bet on this. Those odds are wild.
Fight number 7, we have Raoni Barcelos versus Victor Henry. Raoni Barcelos, he lost a majority decision to Timur Valiev. That was back in June. Very good fighter on paper and just in reality, very credentialed fighter. Good in the stand-up, good striking defense, good front kick, good up kick, good calf kick. I like his hands. They're pretty fast. His boxing is pretty good in general. Very sharp striker, has heavy, accurate strikes. Good clinch as well. Good takedowns. He lands almost 2 per fight. We see over 50% from an accuracy perspective. Good wrestling. And I mean, he's Brazilian, so unsurprisingly, expert grappler as well. For Victor Henry, it's his UFC debut. He last fought at the end of October. From what I've seen from him, stand-up looks pretty clean. I see good regular usage of kicks from him, good feints, good timing on his counters. Looks like he has a pretty high striking IQ. I will give him that. Looks like he has a diverse range of attacks as well. And his grappling looks pretty strong. Again, from what I've seen, I've also seen him land takedowns. This should be a good fight. Good offering from the newcomer, Victor Henry. He's a veteran. I think he's 30 some odd years old. I think they're similarly aged in this fight. Let me just go ahead and double check that. Yeah, 34 years old. So this is not a fresh fighter coming in. This is someone with 26 professional fights, 34 years old. So I'm expecting him to have a pretty decent showing here. I think the key difference is that, something that we talk about very often on this channel, it's a UFC debut for Victor Henry. He may not compete to his full ability, and we may see a much better performance from him in his second UFC fight as opposed to his debut. I also just think in general, who he's going up against, Raoni Barcelos. Barcelos is the more dynamic between the two. He may be the stronger between the two. He may be the faster between the two. And again, he has the UFC experience, and I think that will work in his favor. So again, I'll keep it short. Raoni Barcelos is going to be my pick.
Yeah. This is a tough one. When you look at Victor Henry, I was really impressed with this guy's heart, his cardio. He has that fight in him, and I was really impressed with his ground game. So this is a fight that he definitely could win. But I just think that Barcelos is too hard of a fight on a debut. It's gonna be too hard of a fight. Where Barcelos has wrestling to keep it on the feet, and I just think he's the more dynamic striker in this fight. And after his last fight, he's gonna be looking to win this fight here. Barcelos a dark horse in this division. I don't think he's in the top 10 ranking at all. So he needs this win here. But I think Victor Henry is going to do some good stuff in the UFC. I just think Barcelos is a tough matchup. So I'm going to go Barcelos here, being the more skilled fighter at this point.
Final fight of the prelims, we have Dustin Stoltzfus taking on Gerald Meerschaert. For Gerald Meerschaert, he's on a 2-fight win streak. A good win versus Mahmoud Muradov in August. Good comeback in some ways because Muradov was definitely piecing him up in round 1 before running out of cardio. Meerschaert, relatively basic fighter, basic 1-2 combinations out of that southpaw stance. His stand-up did look a bit more aggressive in his last fight, barely. He was pressing the pace a little bit more, but he definitely leaves that chin up. Again, he was getting pieced up in that fight. Decent clinch, good reliable guillotine, good reliable submissions in general. You take a look at his record there, 33 professional wins. 25 of them are via submission. So that's definitely going to be something that he looks for. And he lands almost 2.5 takedowns a fight. He attempts almost 2 submissions per fight. His takedown accuracy is 40%. So the ground numbers are pretty decent. He is good on top and again, threatens with the submissions. So don't let him get on top of you. For Dustin Stoltzfus, he lost to Rodolfo Vieira in July. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. Uses that calf kick, uses that jab, a lot of fake jabs as well. I wouldn't say he has the best striking defense. I would say in some ways he's a pretty basic striker in his own right. He does have that steady pace on the feet though, and although he is a bit stiff, he can definitely put his punches together. This is somebody who can be taken down. First of all, we see he doesn't really have much of a takedown game of his own, half a takedown per fight, 9% takedown accuracy. But in terms of stopping takedowns, only 50% takedown defense. I think that's going to be very relevant in this fight. He is comfortable off of his back. He does have decent defensive grappling, but that's not necessarily a good thing when you're trying to win rounds. What I will say is this: Stoltzfus doesn't really bring anything to the table, in my opinion. I don't think his striking is particularly better than Meerschaert's, although it should be. I don't think he possesses one-punch power to be a knockout threat for Gerald Meerschaert. And what that tells me is that Meerschaert will be comfortable enough on the feet to not necessarily feel threatened, and then of course make the attempts to bring the fight to the ground, which I do think he will do successfully before looking for those submission attempts and potentially finishing this fight via submission. But Gerald Meerschaert is going to be my pick. Again, I just don't think Stoltzfus is threatening enough of an opponent to stop Meerschaert here.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the odds, man. It's leave it on this screen here. I'm looking at those odds. That's unbelievable. Gerald beat Muradov, and now he's a huge favorite. I don't think Meerschaert has the skills to be a big favorite against anybody in the UFC middleweight division. When I look at this fight, stylistically, I'm not sure who's a better striker. I know that Stoltzfus has some grappling as well. Meerschaert has some grappling, obviously. I just think that eventually it's going to get into Meerschaert's world in the grappling realm. I'm hoping that happens, and I'm going to go with Meerschaert to get this done because I think he's just a bit better in the grappling. But as far as these odds, I can't feel confident that Meerschaert's just going to go in there as a parlay piece and just get it done, make it look easy. I think this could be a hard-looking fight until Meerschaert either gets to finish or it just be a 3-round decision type of fight. But I just think Meerschaert has the better grappling. So that's why I'm going to go Meerschaert to get this done in a fight that I'm not really confident in, but Stoltzfus hasn't impressed me, so I got to go with Meerschaert here.
All right, so let's take it to Vegas. In that case, considering the prelim card, let's start with an underdog pick. Which underdog do you feel has the best shot at winning?
Underdog-wise, I'm going with my boy, Matt Sayles.
I will echo that pick. We see Leavitt on some books as the slight favorite, -125. Matt Sayles, I've seen trending either as a pick'em or in this case, as a plus 100 underdog. So that definitely qualifies for an underdog pick. And again, I will go ahead and echo that. I think Matt Sayles is the underdog that has the best shot at winning. And in terms of favorite pick / pick of the prelim, who are you taking a look at?
Okay, favorite picks. I'm gonna go with Raoni Barcelos. And I'm gonna roll with this is tough. I'm gonna roll with Justin Tafa. This is crazy. Like I'm not gonna probably put bets on these guys. I'm Barcelos, yeah, but not Justin Tafa. But for the sake of the channel, I gotta make this pick.
So if you were to parlay those two together, $100 will return $173. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return $433. In terms of my favorite picks or my pick of the prelim, I will echo Barcelos. I will also echo that it's pretty difficult to put more than one fight from the prelim here. If I had to, I would actually take a chance in some ways with Raquel Pennington being my second pick. But to your point, Barcelos is somebody that I am interested in betting on. Pennington is not. But if you were to put those two together, that'd be a plus 104. $100 will return 204. For our bigger bettors, $250 will return 511. Let's sign off on that note.
I will say something on this video though, that I have a real nice play in the main card. There's a fight I really feel good about. So you got to tune in for that one. Okay, go ahead.
Definitely tune in. Make sure you check out that main card video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video, the notification bell. And again, most importantly, participate in the comments. We want to hear from you, how you feel about our picks, what picks you are considering. And if you're looking for specific analysis on anything, we are more than happy to provide that. So again, we will officially sign off on that note. This has been UFC Vegas 45, aka UFC Fight Night, Derrick Lewis versus Chris Daukaus. He goes by the name of Zan. I go by the name of Harris. We are Boxing MMA Picks. And as usual, let's get this money.
Let's do it.